Welcome to Midlife Reclaimed, the podcast for women ready to navigate midlife with more clarity, compassion, and energy. I'm Shannon A. Swales, psychologist, writer, doggy mama, and midlife woman walking this path alongside you. Twice a month, we explore real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you move through chronic stress, overwhelm, and burnout so you can reclaim your voice, your boundaries, and your joy. Please remember what you hear here is general information, not a substitute for personal therapy. This isn't about midlife crisis, it's about midlife reclamation. So let's begin. Welcome back to Midlife Reclaimed. And if this is your first time listening or watching on YouTube, I'm so glad that you're here. In this episode, I'm joined again by my great friend, Chrissy from Artuition Studio for a warm, deep, and honest conversation about art therapy, creativity, and the midlife women experience. We begin by talking about something many midlife women will recognize, that deep tiredness that can arrive in this season of life, where the body begins speaking a little louder or a lot louder and asking for our attention. From there, our conversation unfolds into the role creativity can play in reconnecting us to ourselves. Chrissy shares her journey into art therapy and the powerful ways creative practices can support our nervous systems, help us reconnect with parts of ourselves that may have been set aside, and offer women spaces where they can nourish themselves again. So, if creativity has ever felt distant in your life, or if you've ever thought, I'm not creative or art therapy is not for me, this conversation may offer a gentle invitation to explore that part of yourself again and to open up to the avenues of art therapy as well as other expressive therapies. So, wherever you're listening or watching today, I invite you to settle in and join us for this very thoughtful and nourishing conversation. Hello, and welcome back to the show, Chrissy. It's wonderful to have you back here again to talk about art therapy and midlife. Welcome.
Hello. It's lovely and tiring to be here.
I feel you. Definitely feeling that this week. Very tired. I'd say exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Mm,
yeah. It's perpetual. Hey,
yes.
we were having that chat before we even logged on. It's just what level of tired am I today?
No, 100%. We were having a good old chat before we hit record, and I think it's like with being a perimenopausal woman, it's like tired, or I think I used a very expletive word, exhausted, bloody
Yeah,
exhausted. We'll use that one.
yeah,
And somewhere along there, and it was actually really when you said that me too. Well, I think there's something about me too. Like when I opened up and said, "Yeah, I'm just, and I'm sick of it. Like
yeah.
I'm getting frustrated this week with it." And when you said, "Oh, that's where I am at too," there was sort of a sense of, well, sort of, there was a, oh, you're
Ah,
not alone. I mean, you're not alone, but when you hear
yeah,
another woman going, "Yeah, I feel you," like
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I think we think, why is everyone else coping and I'm not? But then when you actually have these conversations, you realize none of us are coping. If we're in midlife, it's very challenging and very tiring. So yeah, and I can really
100%.
feel it in my nervous system today, just feeling a bit like kind of um I want to say like lightly prickly in my nervous
Mm,
system, just due to
mm.
fatigue and tiredness. So I was looking forward to chatting with you today. I'm really looking forward to chatting about art therapy with you because that's my
Mm.
jam. But yeah, also noticing there's another level of body tiredness happening there. So
Mm. It's so important to have, well, I think that importance of being aware and making space for that whilst we go about our day, whatever that might be, and whatever we are holding space for, that we also hold space for that. Like we can have both. We don't have to ignore that one for the other. Like
so true. Yeah.
yeah, because in the past, pre-psychology days and understanding, a bit more about the human body and mind and heart and everything, I didn't even know to do this, but that it's, you can have those feelings and still go about your day. I mean, there might be changes you make because of that, or it might be that you can't, but we can always hold that and hold it with kindness and love and care and, as we go about. But I used to just, and I know there'd be many women, many viewers out there where they don't know this and they just keep going on or they have no awareness of that. Like,
Yeah.
hmm.
As you're talking about that, it just makes me think about how there are so many different layers and levels of our experiencing. So maybe our brain feels really awake and on and switched on and wanting to do stuff, but the body is like the complete opposite. Or maybe, so I feel like there can be different layers and complexities, and depending on, our upbringing and our physiology, that's really going to impact which one we privilege, I think. Um,
That's true.
so, so yeah, I'm really trying. I think midlife is really, my body is really speaking loudly now. And I'm starting to privilege that a lot more because I think I just naturally, just through my upbringing and being in a capitalist society, I think I kind of privilege that kind of, no, I've got to do it this way. Just keep going, keep pushing. So something
I
about
feel,
midlife is about just going, oh, hang on, I'm not just a head walking around. I've got this body as well that really deserves this care and attention.
that was really helpful for me here back too. That just conceptualizing it in that way, the head, the body, because it really marries my experience as well. And I imagine many women out there too living in those, capitalist society where those values are put into that productivity. So we often, and more of that cerebral functioning and we often are, yeah, there's head walking around, but the
Yeah,
body speaks and she speaks pretty goddamn loud in
yeah,
midlife that it sort of jolts us into attending to her and hopefully shifting and learning how to
yeah,
tend to her because
yeah.
she needs us. Mm.
She does. I was wondering if it'd be okay if I hope the listeners are okay too. If I just kind of hijack for a moment. Would you mind if we just took a few like co-regulatory breaths? Just to kind of like for me as well, to not just be about all the heady stuff that I know that I want to share in the podcast. Um, so if you want to share it with me, I invite you to pop your hand on your chest and on your tummy, if that feels okay. And if you want to slouch, if you want to, there's no right way to just take a couple of breaths. And I just really want to like imagine that I've got a balloon inside my whole torso. Just taking a couple of nourishing balloon breaths together. Thanks, Shan.
Oh,
I
thank
feel like
you.
I needed that.
Me too. And I had this, it was really lovely the visualization of a balloon too, and my mind, but like it started like colors, and then the
Mm.
mind was a little bit which color, and I was like just allow, and I was just imagining the balloon, and it was like the ice cream that the rainbow ice cream that we have
Mm.
here in Australia. I don't know if it's elsewhere across the world, but blues, pinks, yellows. I think there's a green in that ice cream. It's been actually it hasn't. Uh, um, quick side note, I took my nephew out for ice cream and they had the rainbow ice cream there and we both got it because he wanted it. I'm like, oh, you're definitely of my blood. You're definitely yeah, we know anyway. But yeah, we both ordered rainbow and but yeah, my balloon was a rainbow color and that just added another layer of joy, connection. Thank you
Yes.
for that. That was beautiful. So, hey, what a lovely way to come into our bodies and demonstrate what we were talking about as well, that noticing the body needing us a bit more in this, or a lot more in this season. And that is a way to get into our bodies and offer some nourishment to her in any moment throughout the day. It's accessible, our breath, right? It only
Mm.
took a minute to give a little bit of, been saying a lot lately, a little bit of love, a little bit of care,
Yeah.
a little bit of support to her. So, yeah. Thank
Bring
you.
a little bit of rainbow into the moment.
The rainbow. Yeah,
Yeah.
love the rainbows, love ice cream. Uh, so before we continue this conversation, I have some exciting news to share with you. Midlife Reclaimed has been nominated in this year's Women in Podcasting Awards, a global initiative to help raise the voices of women in podcasting. So, if this episode or another or this podcast has supported you in some shape or form over the 5 years that it has been in existence, I would really appreciate your vote. I will be leaving the voting link in the show notes. So, make sure before you finish this episode or after you finish this episode to vote for Midlife Reclaimed. It will not only really make me smile, but also help get Midlife Reclaimed out to those who could benefit greatly from listening. So, thank you in advance for your vote. And of course, thank you for continuing to follow, subscribe, like, or just enjoy an episode or two. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of you. Hey, art therapy and midlife. My own, everything sort of dictates from my own personal experience these days, but it sort of then weaves into my work as well. And I learned from my experience in midlife burnout, I felt, I suppose, pulled towards creativity because it was a part that was not being nurtured.
Mm.
And at some point in my recovery, I don't know where, but that became obvious. But exploring in my therapeutic journey as a client, not as the therapist hat, creative therapies. And it's just blossomed from there in terms of exposure, like just me being in the client or supervisee seat, but just witnessing or witnessing, experiencing through the therapist, it's been music, art, God, I kind of think clay field there, like lots of different like expressive writing, lots of creative ways, and also with yourself, Chrissy, because I'm joining your art therapy. So it's I realize from a personal, and I know it's not going to be everyone's journey, but from a personal experience, how valuable creative therapies are just from a lived experience. And I'm a therapist, psychologist who comes more from the traditions of, more of your talk-based therapies, which traditionally have been taught from a top down, from a mind to body, but they're waking up to the wisdom of the body to mind and the circular nature of that. But yeah, I've come from that. So it's been a really interesting journey. Anyway, long story there. That's why I want to have more representation of the pod of creative therapists like yourself to bring that knowledge and wisdom to the midlife women and ways in which they can explore, therapeutically, but maybe just through, not maybe, also through midlife transition, because as we've just talked about, it can come with lots of challenges, like with
Yeah.
fatigue. Anyway, tell us about and so I'm just looking over my notes here. What drew you to art therapy, particularly working in the midlife space? I'm curious to find out a bit more about that myself because I haven't asked you that.
Oh, wow. Um, that's a really good question. I noticed probably about so I did art right through to high school, right through high school. I wanted to
Mhm.
continue on after school, but my parents thought I should get a real job. So I got into education. So I have from then until now, it's been about a 30-ish year career working in education. Um, and after a few years, after I finished my education, I went overseas and I lived in Europe for a while. And I just noticed how the arts over there aren't this like a frivolous tack on like they are in Australia. I feel like Australia doesn't privilege the arts systemically. I think that there are definitely lots of little pockets, like there's some pockets in Melbourne and pockets in Brisbane, and there's pockets all around
Yeah.
that have those kind of like strong creative ethics, but you know I feel
Hmm.
like we've been brought up to kind of be that blue collar family that we
Mm.
work hard and if we've got time at the end of the day or the week or the month, then we can get to do a little bit of something for ourselves. So yeah,
Yes.
seeing that contrast when I was in Europe, I came back and I decided to study art. And I actually didn't know that art therapy was a thing.
Hmm.
I found out probably about when I was about 26 or 27, I was working at a youth magazine doing some graphic design stuff. And one of the people that I worked with, one of my supervisors actually suggested it. She said, I really feel like you'd be great with art therapy. So
Hmm.
they actually sent me off to a 1 day professional development in art therapy, and it was using clay. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, this is really interesting. Like, not only do I really love art and I love the making of it, but something about art therapy helped me. It kind of like helped me feel like making art is more legitimate because I'm doing it for a purpose.
mm,
So,
mm,
so it's
mm,
kind of like I'm doing this for health or I'm doing this for healing. Or I'm doing this for my mental capacity. So it's really interesting. I've kind of come full circle now because now I realize that making art just for making art and drawing, painting, that is inherently healing. It doesn't have to have the purpose of healing because it naturally is.
I
Um,
hear. Yeah.
yeah, so that's this kind of like, yeah, so it's just this not knowing about it, finding out about it, trying it myself, going, oh, this is really cool. It feels great and it ticks some extra boxes. And then I went on a very long and meandering journey of
Mm.
studying.
My hand, because listeners won't, my hand went on my heart, because yeah, the longevity and the perseverance, I don't know, it's such a journey when you study something and yeah, it just is. So hand on heart, went, oh, feel you.
Yeah.
Mine was a very long journey becoming a psychologist as well. But
How
meaningful.
long did you take, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I started my undergrad in around 2004 and
Mhm.
I graduated because to become a psychologist to actually practice without any probationary, you have to have, well, there's a couple of pathways, but basically 6 years equivalent full time of well university. But there anyway, won't confuse. It's a bit of an arduous. So it was 2013 when I got my full registration. I was a probationary slack from 2008
Mhm.
when I started because I took the master's level route. And yeah, so 2013, 2004 to 2013, I had
Mm.
a break in between. I went overseas, did a backpacking holiday, working holiday, and I also took a break in between two modes of when I finished my honors year before I went into masters or
Mm.
attempted to get into masters.
Mm.
It's very few placements or places. So yeah, yeah, it's and that's not uncommon. Like
Yeah, mine was 15 years, a 15-year journey. Yeah.
yeah, and I think just normalizing that, especially when you're going as an adult and you need to, you're holding down a job, you might be raising your children, you're like it's such a privilege in a lot of ways to be able to do, like for me to be able to do masters because you got to do placements and things like that.
Mm.
I was in a position where I mean I had a job that paid well that I could do part time and I got into masters part time, which only had two places at this uni.
Mm.
And they just really, the system, anyway, I'm going off track, but the system really doesn't allow for the reality of the people who are wanting to come in and become psychologists, so only a privileged few who can afford to, which was
Mm.
my situation. And if I didn't have that part-time slot, there was no way I could do it
Yeah.
because I couldn't work full time. I needed to work the hours I needed to, and for my health as well, I couldn't do anyway. I just wouldn't have been able to do it if I couldn't get
Yeah.
part-time.
Yeah.
And they've
Yeah.
actually taken that away now. I don't think they allow for part-timers. Well,
Mm.
anyway, I could be wrong. So it's just like, oh, let's just make it so a certain few can actually get in. Mm.
Yeah. When you said I'm going off track, I'm like, this is not off track at all because, like, particularly if we're talking about midlife,
Yeah.
like often we kind of get to midlife, and that's when we might actually finally start to go, I know what I want to do with my life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Um,
Yeah, that's true.
or we might be kind of real, or because we have so much less capacity for all of the extra stuff, we can really only do where our real strong passion and strengths really
Mm,
are now.
mm.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of systemic stuff around that just doesn't account for the cyclic nature of womanhood. And and how we do go through these different cycles, whether we become a parent or at my age that now I'm looking after my own parents as well, and I have a teenager, and there's all of these things full time, to make a career change or a pivot. It's just not achievable for many of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And even if we are doing that, at what cost as well
Yeah.
too. Like I've worked with women where midlife women where they are making that pivot in their career, and a lot of them are suffering burnout just because the level that is required to do this thing that they're passionate about, but because it requires more from them than what they can give, like because it's full time, or like just systemic expectations
Yeah.
that is not in the rhythm of a woman's life at that stage. And
Yeah.
even my older sister, she did a pivot in her early midlife. She started, she went into medicine, and she's got or at the time she was young, but she's a teenager now. I mean, she's doing her general practitioner now, GP training. So she's still on the training, but like it's a long road. Uh, so yeah, anyway, she's, raising a family as well as doing this, but she was just talking about whilst she was really grateful to get in and there being a position, she was the only midlife mature. There was
Mm.
most were straight or did their undergrad, whatever, went into medicine. But like she goes, the system itself isn't built,
Yeah.
for a midlife woman raising her children. Yeah, going through, well, she's in perimenopause now as well, but also lots of chronic illnesses as well, like, managing. It's just
Yeah.
system itself makes it
Yeah.
hard for people to go where their talents are, go where their desires, go where they're going to be so valuable to others, but also to themselves because they're doing what they, feel
Mhm.
pulled towards, feels connecting and meaningful.
Totally. I
Mm.
feel like the systems are still very much patriarchal,
Yeah.
and men don't experience the same cyclic nature that women
Mm.
do, so they may have a particular baseline that's fairly consistent, whereas like each month, each day, we have different capacities and different needs, and it's just
100%.
not accounted for across the board.
No.
Um,
No.
yeah, I
Is it?
realized that I didn't fully answer your question before
Oh,
of
yeah, go.
how that went into working with midlife women.
Yeah, because
Um,
yeah, tell me about that. And
Yeah, that's something I haven't actually ever talked about before. So, first of all, so through working in education, I used to manage some little kindies, and I was like the director there or co-director there. And I'd notice I'd be so that the mums would come when they'd pay their fees for their children in care, and we'd end up having these really long chats and just being who I am. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and we just got into some really big conversations. And I noticed this thread of all of these mums just feeling wired, and no time to care for themselves. And then, so I had previously run a lot of art workshops for children. And often when so sometimes the local library or the local art gallery would get me in to do some events and things for them. And I noticed that often the parents would want to join in as well.
Mm.
And when often I'd have these mums and dads, and they would just say to me, "Oh, this has been so good. I haven't done anything like this since I was a kid. And I used to love painting, or I used to love drawing, or I used to love clay." And it just kind of got me thinking, like, what if I started to create spaces where people can kind of like just re-nourish that part of themselves, where creativity, like I feel like at all, with all of the different stages of life that we've been through, they are still part of us. So that child is still in us, that teenager is still in us, all of that. Just because we're older, they don't simply go away, they're still alive. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I just had this really strong sense of
Mm,
I see that you're struggling and I'm struggling too. And maybe instead of going into our deep, dark secrets together, why don't we just make art and let's just,
mm,
enjoy time together and bring joy back into our experiences and use our hands and sit around and chat like women used to do. Uh,
mm,
yeah. So,
mm,
yeah, just slowly kind of transitioned. And yeah, I still work with, so I do have a few. So I specialize in autism and ADHD,
mhm.
children and midlife women,
Yeah,
particularly late
yeah.
diagnosed. So yeah, I kind of feel like
Yeah.
I'm able to straddle both of those. The kids are, I love working with the kids because there's rainbows and brightness and air and all of those. And I love working with the women because it's just so like, it just feels so nourishing. Like it feels like a group of women nourishing themselves and how revolutionary that is.
And what we used to do when you look back at previous, like way, way, way back before probably industrial revolution, before patriarchy, before like, women circles, women spaces,
Totally.
yeah, dancing, being, like just coming together and being each other. It sounds like that's what you're creating. And through those experiences and exposure, you found this or discovered this need. And I was
Yeah.
curious to find out, which is so awesome. And being part of your spaces has been really great for this midlife woman. And I feel like you said like you love working and you do work with children as well. But I feel like even with the woman, I mean, you're working with the adult, but you were talking about how a lot of them connected when they were doing the or do the creativity with you, the art, that, oh, I haven't done this since I was a child, and that there's always a child in us. So you're working with the children and the child in us all
True.
the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But she's
I
present
love that.
here in the present, and the adult, yeah, because we never, that creativity, that play, that fun, the for the sake of it, not for some production or produce or that our, yeah, patriarchy but capitalist society has conditioned us to be. Yeah, but I'm curious in your exposure in this work with women, what you've noticed the creativity, what makes it so meaningful, so helpful for women, just what you observe, what you notice in that
Mm.
midlife space.
I think probably the first one is permission.
Mm,
So I truly believe that it's revolutionary for a woman to give themselves permission to carve time out for themselves. Like that in itself. We could be sitting around having a cup of tea, we could be sitting around making art, we could be sitting around, gardening together, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's the fact that you've given yourself
mm,
that time, that permission to be able to do something that previously nourished you and you'd like to bring that back in. So
mm,
there's this real sense of, oh, it's giving me goosebumps, like
mhm,
reclamation, a
mm,
really beautiful sense of reclaiming what is naturally joyous. And I think there's also some retraining or untraining our minds to
mm,
allow that creativity back in and allow that frivolousness, allow that
mhm.
joy back in. Like there's just so many things. So yes, we use art supplies and stuff, but they're just the vehicle. It's really, there's so many deeper, really beautiful threads that go into sharing experiences with women.
Yeah.
And the main thing I notice is how they feel afterwards.
Mm, yeah,
So
yeah.
no matter, I have never ever worked with a client or in a group where somebody has felt worse at the end. It's kind of like, as much as we don't want to talk about exercise, it's kind of like when you're like, I know I should go for a walk, and you finally do go, and you're like, you know what, it was really hard to get myself there, but God, I'm glad I did because I feel so much better. It's like that with art, or
Yeah.
creativity. Yeah, so they would be the main things, I think, that reclamation, that changing the mindset, and how good you feel afterwards.
Mm. And I
Yeah.
know it was revolutionary for me. Like, yeah, I was just like, because art therapy, and that's leading into my next question is sort of like you're sharing it anyway already, but like, what actually is it? Like, and with what you shared so far, and definitely getting the picture. But I suppose for those who unlike yourself or me, who's, you've definitely had a lot of exposure. You're an expert in the area. Myself being a recipient of it. But yeah, what is art therapy? How does that look? Well, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love this question.
Oh.
And I think every art therapist we'd have similar threads, but we'd all say it a little bit differently. I try and put it in a way that anyone can understand. So the best way to put it is when we attend a session with you,
Mhm.
Shannon, sorry, we know
Oh,
each
either
other. I
way,
call
I
you
answer to
Shannon.
both. Just
Uh,
not Shaz.
I-
I got that as a kid from my next door neighbor who was like a second mum to me, still is. We just live in different cities now. But she could get away with it because, well, she was like a second mum. So
yeah, I will
no one
never
else.
call you Shaz.
I will. No.
So,
Anyway.
so yeah, the way I help explain what art therapy is through what it's not. So, so when we attend a psychologist
Mhm.
or a counseling session, we talk about an experience that we're having, and it helps the psychologist will assist us to unpack those things, and so that we can integrate it and grow from there. In art therapy, instead of using our voice, we use the art materials to communicate. So we might draw a feeling instead of saying how we're feeling. We might, if we need, so instead of you needing to give some breath work regulation tools, for example, I might choose particular supplies, art supplies that I know can be really calming for the person. So
Mm,
it's still communication, it's just
mm,
visual communication instead of verbal
mm,
communication. So, and
mm,
it's really great for, I found that the populations that I work best with
mm,
and just, through who I've seen it work really well with, amazing for kids because they're still naturally in that kind of zone of being
mm.
creative. They're not shut off from their creativity and they're
Yeah.
not trying to think about being productive. So it can be really great for them because you're already meeting them at their level.
Mhm.
Neurodivergent folks, so quite a lot of people with autism and ADHD, we will have trouble if we're overwhelmed, our
Mm,
verbal communication will go offline.
mm,
So we may go mute, or we may just not be able to articulate. We may can't retrieve words, all of these sorts of things.
mm.
And also perimenopausal women, because exactly what I said about the word retrieval, we lose our train of thought, all of those sort of things, we're kind of being able to bring back that sense of
Mm,
what we used to enjoy, but we also don't need to verbally articulate it. And the way, so there's many different ways to share art therapy, but for me, it's less about working with a client, choosing a traumatic experience and really kind of like digging into that. That definitely has its place. Like trauma healing, 100% is an extremely important um, aspect of growth, personal growth. Like,
mm,
it's
yeah.
very difficult to do any sort of personal growth if you're not able to kind of work with that traumatic side of
Mm,
things. But it's not the only side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, what if we brought in experiences that really bolster our nervous system in a positive way?
mm,
So what if we start bringing back experiences that naturally help the nervous system to calm down, to feel expressive, to be able to share our voice in a different way. So that's the side that I tend to. That's just where my genius zone, for lack of a better way,
mm, yeah.
goes. And mainly that's because as a autistic ADHD woman myself, my
Mm,
empathy levels are so extreme that I actually find it challenging to only work on trauma, because
mhm,
I can experience somebody's emotions when I'm like in the room with them.
mm,
So
mm,
I just kind of try and stay in my lane. And if something comes up for a client that I find that somebody else might be a really fabulous support with them, then I often
mm,
say, I think that this person would be amazing for that. We could do this part together, and maybe that
mm,
person could really help specialize in that particular area for you. So,
mm,
yeah, just kind of having that awareness of what I can and can't do, what my boundaries are, and what would be
mm.
best for the client.
There's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, thank you for that element too. Like as professionals, but I think as human beings in this world, it's such an important lesson because I had to learn this one. But like knowing that we have our area, our lane, our area that we're pulled towards, that we notice we're good at as well, that supports our well-being too, and having that boundary around that limit. And there are other people that can do that work. I think that's such a important midlife, like often ends up becoming a midlife lesson because before,
Mhm.
especially for a lot of women, we've been born and raised in a world where, like you don't, well, you don't matter, like, well, that your needs and sort of discovering that and instead meeting the needs of others, or meeting the expectations of what we should be doing. And so we don't have that kind of perspective or reflective practice and actual behavioral practice of doing what you just described there. That's so important. I just wanted to highlight that because that's such a lovely and important thing and in my work is a lot of the work with the midlife and women. But I want to come to that, like, I just love how, art therapy can have so many in ways too, like it's, you were saying that even just focusing on bringing experiences back and reconnecting with that child self, and bringing that and joy back into your life, creativity back into your life. So many midlife women I come across, and me included in that in the past, was joyless. I don't
Yeah.
have any joy. And even now when I connect with that, I get really, really sad because that was not a way to live. And that was really, really sad and depressing. And creativity can be a way to connect back to that. And then also a way to process and to connect with those parts of us that for the trauma healing. And I remember I went to clay field therapy. So that you said that you dabbled in that too. But for the audience, it was basically a piece of clay, a rectangle clay tray thing, where a therapist was guiding me in through sort of a mindful meditation sort of practice to explore and just let my hands do, my fingers do, and really connect back into the body. And it was just so powerful. And I was still doing healing at that time. And through what I'd been through in practice, and a lot of it was trauma based, not direct trauma, vicarious trauma.
Mm.
But I'm someone like yourself that I didn't realize, but I do take a lot of the emotion, yeah, in, and it was sitting in my body. And yeah, that was just a really beautiful way because I was doing the talk therapy stuff. It was very effective for me. I found that really helpful, but I just was inquisitive, and that was my first foray into art therapy and or expressive or somatic type therapies. And I had 2 sessions with this person who was training in it, so that's why it was limited sessions. But I was like, whoa. And I had thought I'd already done a lot of healing, and I had, but I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Other ways, and especially when you were saying with particular populations, or populations, people who are more nonverbal, where it might be more harder to express themselves, or they may not even have connected to that yet. And this is a way in, this is a way through, this is a way beyond. Like it's just another way that gives therapy accessibility to others, and for the perimenopausal woman who's probably too tired to talk, or too
Totally, totally.
or
The
too
beauty,
fogged
the
to.
beauty, exactly. Well, the beauty of, you were talking about, the top-down processing, and I think that that's extremely important. But if we're not doing the bottom-up processing, we can we can learn all of these techniques, and we can learn all of these rituals, and we can learn all of these ways intellectually. But if that hasn't processed and settled into our body, we're just going to be fighting against ourselves. There's going to be this real, and I'm saying this from experience.
Yeah.
I think there have been a lot of tapes, particularly as a late diagnosed ADHD woman. Like, I just masked my whole life trying doing the thing that I thought that I was meant to do because I was autistic and ADHD. And so I had social differences. So I would just, okay, so this is what you're meant to do socially. Instead of being able to tap into what feels right for me, it was very external. This is what we're meant to do. So that's what I'll do. And so I find that whether you're late diagnosed or not, many of us get to midlife and we're suddenly like, I don't even know what I need. I don't
Mm.
even know what I like because we've spent our whole lives doing what we think we're meant to do. And then, I was actually, I had to just confirm some research this morning. There's different parts of estrogen in our body. And when we go into perimenopause and then into menopause, the type of estrogen, it's estriadol, that's the one that declines, but that is also the nurturing hormone. So from when we get when we start menstruating to when we're in menopause, that's the one that makes us outward focused. So it's about caring for others, it's nurturing for others, it's being a good mum, all of those, parenting, pets, all of those sort of things. So you think about it, our system, that hormone that's been buffering us all of this time to be outward focused is dwindling away. And suddenly we're left with like, okay, I've been outward focused my whole life. Shit. What do I want? What do
What do
I
I do?
need?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and
Um,
that's, yeah.
so yeah, and I found, often it's going back to what we used to like. They can be the first little key moments that to
Mm.
help rebuild. I
Mm.
don't think it's rebuild who we are. I think it's like really in midlife, it's about tapping into who we really are. And this,
Yeah.
yeah.
I always find that too. Yeah, like those phrases that we use. Yeah, it's tapping into who we are because she's there. And that's so
Rediscovering.
important.
Yeah.
I remember learning that about the different estrogen and it made me think. I remember when I was sitting there, I was at a menopause summit back last year and hearing this information, learning this. And I was like, oh, like my therapist hat was on. I was like, this is why self-compassion and other compassion coming in is so important, and so difficult for a lot of us, including myself. But I know for a lot of women who come and see me, that allowing that in or giving that to self is hard. But because we no longer have that outward focus, but that flow of compassion outwards, and there is this who am I, what's going on, feeling lost or what's going on, that can be a lovely vehicle, as well to start to nurture, to buffer and support because we don't have estrogen or that type of estrogen to support us. I was like, we need to become our
Yeah.
own nurturers and the women's spaces, not just our own nurturer, but be around
Yes.
the power of collective. And I learned that actually from in my early recovery period when I was looking at coming back to some sort of work. I started working as being supervised by a music therapist. She was also music and wasn't art. It was mostly music therapy. But she supervised any health professional. It didn't matter, but in that way through music, and art too. She did do that, although she wasn't a trained art therapist. But she, if we wanted to draw or wanted to write or journal, express in those ways, she just really facilitated that. And I don't know, my brain is having that perimenopause problem. Why did I go on that track? But anyway,
You're in good company.
I'm like, where am I? But anyway, art therapy, I'm totally sold on it. But what was sitting in my brain though is I know, well, not that I know, it's been my experience and some others there, and I think you started to talk to this too. There's so much that like blocks, like
Mm.
I hear from myself, it's less so now because of my exposure and help from women like yourself, because I never thought I'm not a creative being, like, and my perfectionist came back out. Like she's
Mhm.
part of me, she's not all of me. She's definitely not driving anymore, or I try not to let her drive. But she's there. But she comes out a lot in the creativity. And I was just curious in your work, particularly with the midlife women and, with the ADHDs or, definitely neurodivergent as well, like what you notice as some of those challenges, I suppose, that women come up with when they're engaging in art therapy, connecting back into that creativity for whatever reason to,
Mm.
work and process on trauma or, or connect back to themselves, in this creative space. But yeah, what are those common
Mm.
blocks and
I'd say the biggest block and challenge is showing up in the first place.
ah,
So, like if we think about, so if we're in midlife and, think about all the responsibilities that we've still got with such a depleted nervous system. So imagine in a whole pie chart, you've got like one tiny sliver of pie left for yourself. Where are you going to spend that? If you've already got some resistance around art making, perfection, getting things right, you might not even choose to use that piece of pie to go there. So
I got you.
I would love to know what it is that makes somebody choose. Can I ask you what made you choose art therapy? Because this might help answer the question. I've got some more to
Hmm.
say about it, but I'm curious, like why that when you had such a small slice of the pie to be able to nurture yourself with?
Well, I did go to traditional, well, I call it traditional for me therapy to start with. So it wasn't what I chose to invest in first, but quite when I was really unwell and not working, going to therapy, I started journaling. And I suppose
Mm,
in a way that's creative, I don't know, but like,
absolutely.
yeah, I started
Mm.
writing again. And I say again because I actually really liked writing in school.
See, there it is.
Yeah.
Right. That
And I
re
did art right up to year 12 as well.
oh,
But yeah, it wasn't a job. And by then I had a really bad sense of self anyway. So I didn't think I was good enough anyway, but didn't have the encouragement because it wasn't a real job.
mm,
So even if I did have some sort of sense of I'm good at this, yeah, I wouldn't have. So it was but what I remember in my early recovery period, just really starting to recognize as I was journaling that I'd lost myself. Like I kept writing the word lost. And
mm,
I was actually, I don't even think I know myself. And so, and as I was writing, I started also doing these just naturally, I think intuitively. Like I went back to my photo albums that my beautiful mum kept for us. So I'm grateful that I have that opportunity. I went back and connecting with the things I loved to do because I was like, well, what, when I was like, I don't know who I am. So what did I love? Like, when was the last time I felt like
mm.
myself? And I was like, well, 5, 6, which was sad to even acknowledge back then, even a little bit now. But I was like,
Yeah.
okay, what did 7-year-old or 5-year-old, 8-year-old self love? And she's like, yeah. And this is when I started to, I suppose, open up and realize that creativity, play, just fun and what did I find fun? And I think through that process, it took a while to awaken to actually taking action because of perfectionism, to actually allow myself to draw or to paint or to join an art class or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it's still there, but not so much. Like I started, the first thing that I did was when I got sick of writing, like I wanted to keep journaling, but I was just like, fuck, I'm just over the words. I don't have
Mm,
any more words. I'm done with the words. I went,
mm,
hey, let's draw. And
mm.
it was Misty that, oh, sorry, yeah, oh, I'm forgetting it. Misty was the music therapist I was talking about. When I started going to her as a supervisee, that's where I started to be able to open up and allow myself. So it was being in the spaces that gave me permission.
Yeah.
And I made space that helped me because I think on my own I would have blocked. But with the spaces that were very like yours as well, like there's no performance. Like with Misty, it was um we're just here. We're a collective group here to support each other with the challenges of doing this kind of work. You don't need to be a certain thing here. I do guided practices so you can engage in it. You don't have to share. There was just permission. I got myself there, but like, yeah, I think once I had a little bit of space, I kind of, yeah. I think it wasn't straight up. I don't think I could have given that slither. The slither could only go to what I knew and I was
Yeah.
comfortable in
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Therapy, I mean,
Yeah.
this is therapy too, but the traditional talk therapy that I was used to, something I was comfortable with. I'd been to it before as a
Mm,
client, not just
yeah.
I was very yeah, I don't think I had the bandwidth to do something really different. But
Yeah.
finding Misty, what like she's such a beautiful soul, and I connected with her, I think, initially before I then went into her group. And I just flourished from there. I met you. Like, and that opportunity to do the clay field, and I was just like, whoa, and that was a free opportunity. Like she was training, just taking those opportunities and just little things like deciding to draw on my journal, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So permission. So I'm hearing permission. I'm also hearing turning to the turning to the arts when you've tried everything else and nothing else is working. That's really
Well,
common.
yeah, other things were working. I just, um, I do a lot of meditation and mindfulness. Things were working. It just, they weren't necessarily, I don't know, this was just a different level. And
Maybe not the whole story. Maybe
no,
it,
yeah.
so
And
it's like it works on a part, but there's still other parts.
and traditional therapy doesn't help me. It's still it's not it wasn't helping me well, I suppose grow because I dealt with my perfectionist and a lot of shedding, a lot of creating, but it wasn't, I suppose, that growth I needed, and I wanted to connect back into my creative self. And
Mm,
um that traditional therapy helped in the blocks and barriers that I had to that, but I
mm.
needed to actually experience it. I needed to actually.
Yeah. So it's not just the head, it's the body doing. Yeah,
Yeah, and traditional therapy doesn't
yeah,
incorporate art
yeah,
in
yeah.
that way, or any sort of form of create like, oh, maybe a little bit here and there, but not in the deeper sense that those who are trained in it or those who can
Mm,
guide those groups and
mm.
one-on-ones can. So yeah, yeah.
So I'm just thinking like some other barriers that I've noticed. So the beauty of working across the lifespan like I have is I've
Mm,
worked with little kids right through to grown-ups now.
mm,
And you know how I said that kids are really creative. I can actually like be able to, I can see and map what age that barrier starts to show up, and it's usually
yeah.
around grade 3.
Mm,
So prior to grade 3, you know, you think about a little preppy, if you gave them a brush, they'd just be like, oh, cool, let's, you know, they might even eat some of the paint, who knows, you know. But then as
yeah.
they're in the schooling system for a period of time, by year 3, you kind of have that understanding that you do something this way, you get it right, and then you get
Mm,
acceptance, really. And
yeah.
the other way, if you do something this way and you get it wrong, then you get punished for it. So creativity is not a right or wrong experience. Creativity is literally just a way of being. It's like the way that our cells recreate. It's every word that comes out of my mouth right now is creating something that didn't exist before. So it's just the essence of who we are. So if we kind of like are only doing what the head says and following rules, and that happens around grade 3 and onwards, then it can actually become really ingrained by the time we're in midlife, you know.
Mm, 100.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So often it takes when either nothing else working or only part of the just you might feel like, okay, I'm getting this in my head, but my soul doesn't feel nourished. I'm feeling emptiness
Yeah.
in my soul. I'm feeling my body just still, I know all the right things to do, but I'm still feeling this way.
Mm,
So there's something about the beauty of the arts being like this really lovely bottom up experiencing. And bottom up basically just means that you're learning and experiencing through the body as a growth tool, not
mm.
just the head. Um, so we still do some top-down stuff in art therapy, but the whole session is mostly around the bottom up, just using materials, often just chatting lightly while we
Yeah.
create. And then at the end, we'll just have a look at the art materials, what you might have created, any associations that you might have, and that's where the top-down kind of comes
Yeah.
well. Um, but another thing around a barrier is when you're talking about perfection. If I had $1 for every time somebody said to me, I can't even draw a stick figure, oh my God, like that particular saying, I don't know why that is the thing that is picked up to say whether you're creative or not. It's just a load of
Mm,
bullshit,
mm.
completely honest. At the end of the day, there is like, if I had every art material and every process to choose from, why would I want to sit there and draw stick figures? There's so many other things you could try.
Yeah.
Um, so I think at some stage, often the women who come to me loved creating when they were younger, but at some stage in the schooling system, sometimes in high school, one of the art teachers said, that's not very good. You're not good at art. And so they just stopped it right there. So I kind of think, I say to people, um, you don't have to be an Olympian swimmer to go for a swim. You don't
Yeah.
have to be a professional artist to use art supplies. That's kind of how it's just,
That's beautiful because especially in Australia, like we all learn to swim, hopefully, but being
yeah,
around water all the time, um, yeah, none of us second guess when we go for a swim that we've got to be great at this, even
totally.
if we're
Yeah.
doggy paddling, like we're like, we can swim. No one's comparing, but yeah, art, we are. I mean, I'm one of recovering, but it's certainly one of them. And I did art to year 12.
Yeah.
And had an art piece put into a local competition,
Yeah.
nominated alongside another student. It was three of us. Anyway, but I still had in my head, I'm no artist, but yeah, all it takes, yeah. And you said even from year three, like what you've noticed, and that's where it can start, like because it becomes about what you produce and
The
you're
product.
marked and you're
Yeah.
either good or you're bad, it's the system itself that can destroy, and we have these sayings that can perpetuate it. When you said the stick figure one, which, I've heard that a lot. Can't even draw a stick figure. I couldn't use that one because I couldn't. But like I've heard it with cooking too. My sister always gets the older one. She always gets the like she can't cook. She can't even boil egg. She can cook, like because where did that come? Boil an egg? Like she's no chef, but why?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
like
yeah.
and she doesn't care for cooking. Like survive and feed her kids, but
Mm,
like it doesn't matter. Anyway, but it is all these systemic sort of things that then become our blocks and our resistance and our fears maybe or anxieties around that we don't, with that little slither of energy we in
mm,
midlife to actually put into something as beautiful as the spaces you've created and missed all the people I've been exposed to. I haven't, I think you said earlier, no one leaves an art therapy session feeling worse, and I can vouch for that.
yeah.
But yeah, but with all those blocks and resistance that society has fed us that live inside us, like it can block us from giving permission to go into one of these spaces that will hold us. Because I know
Yeah,
you've held my, and without even like needing to talk about it, it's just the
yeah,
space itself
yeah.
opens you up and
Yeah.
opens and connects you to your inner creativity.
Mm,
It just does. Like the spaces itself helps unblock you without even just being what it
absolutely.
is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as
Get
you were
yourself
chatting,
there. Just get yourself there. Just like, it will be okay.
yeah, that's it. It's just the showing up.
Yeah,
Once you're
show
there,
up. Just like
yeah,
you do the gym or wherever you go for
yeah,
movement. You put your
show
shoes
up.
on, you go for that walk, whatever. Just
Yeah,
show up.
yeah,
Show
yeah.
up,
And
you'll
I
be all right.
recognize that's hard too.
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck it. Like,
Um,
I was laughing actually earlier or giggling a little bit because I did Pilates this morning and yeah, it took so much to get there. Like it took so
all
much.
right.
But I'm feeling fantastic for having gone, but
Yeah.
yeah, did
See,
not.
that's when having so much. Oh God, I feel like I need 10 podcast sessions with you.
We'll have you back.
Different levels, right? Like so we might wake up and we might not have, if you're using the metaphor of exercise, we might not have the mojo to be able to go to Pilates, but we might be able to take the dog for a walk around the block, right? And it's the same with art making. You might not have the capacity to be able to set up a canvas and all of the paints and get everything organized, but you might be able to just sit down with some felt pens and a little notebook while you're watching TV and just do a little bit of
Yeah.
doodling.
Yeah, that capacity.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't have to, and that was what was really helpful with working with you is because I had this, and my mind always goes to the end picture,
Mm.
and it being so overwhelmed by that because like,
Yeah.
but when it's like no, 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 you know, and
Mm.
sometimes
Right back.
arrive back. What?
Yeah.
And often it just starts with a doodle. Like I often go, oh, doodling. And
Yeah.
sometimes that will go to something else, or it'll just stop at that doodle, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pause here for a moment to share something with you. If you'd like to keep up to date with what I'm working on in the world of midlife and burnout, I invite you to join my mailing list. It's where I share updates on the resources, events, and services I offer to help you navigate midlife stress, overwhelm, and burnout with more ease and clarity. As a thank you, you'll receive my free guided journal, Journaling as a Way Back to Yourself, a gentle, at your own pace, reflective practice to slow down, listen inward, and reconnect with what matters most. You'll also get a couple of extra resources to support you in your inbox after your journal arrives. You can sign up via the link in the show notes or at shannonaswales.com/subscribe. So now back to the episode. Something that you said a little bit earlier or there around creativity is in us, like if it's already there, and you were talking about, and it's just something that I'm coming to hear a bit more from others as well in the space of art therapy or art creativity in general, that it's not something like, I suppose I've always seen, and I'm sure some women out there listening to us seeing creativity as this product or this thing that you produce, which, oh my God, I just think about our systems, of course we think that way, but that it's actually something that already exists and is around us. Like, you were saying that earlier, it's around us. And what I've been reading, connecting with, they talk about, nature is creativity, everything is creativity. It's actually in us, it comes from us. Like, it's not something we are or we are not, or that we produce or don't produce, that we're good or bad at, that the system has fed us. But it's actually something that already lives in us, and it's connecting back. I just wonder if you can speak a bit more to that, because it's something I'm just really sitting with and connecting with. Yeah. And
It's such a beautiful inquiry, Shan, like
Mm.
the nature of creativity itself. And I think if we think creativity is an art class in high school, then we will think it's about that creativity and art are the same thing. They are linked in some ways, but it's not exactly the same thing. So I think about traditional tribal life, like many, many years ago, and for many Indigenous people still today, singing and gathering and dancing and painting and carving. These were all so deeply embedded in ritualistic, regular culture. It was so part of the external environment and within our communities that we wouldn't wonder, are we creative or not? Because we were just living the creative
living.
energy naturally in our bodies. But
Mm.
if we think creativity, and that's what I mean about the art, if we think it is the product, if we think that's
Mm.
what creativity is, I think that's where the mismatch might
Yeah.
be. It's that kind of the end product of something. So I feel so I'm just going to slow down for a minute and just tap into what my
Mm.
body feels creativity is.
Mhm.
So creativity for me feels like it's coming from my feet, this beautiful, slow rising up of a golden, moving energy of aliveness.
Mm.
That's what creativity feels like to me.
Mm.
And I think about, so imagine if you're looking at a flower bud,
Mm.
and it's slowly blooming, that energy is coming up from the ground, it's rising up,
Mm.
and that flower is
It's
opening.
creating.
It's
Yeah.
creating. And so, like, everything for me, creativity is it's the energy of the experiencing. And to be creative, or the act of creation, is when we bring anything into this moment right now that wasn't here 5 seconds ago. So that's kind of how I see it. So for me, this conversation that we're having is incredibly creative. Journaling is incredibly creative. A moment where you're just like patting your puppy and you're having this moment of love, that's a moment of creation right there. Like, it's this
Mm.
real
Mm.
knife edge moment of what's happening right now that wasn't there before. So it's
Mm.
not, we can learn techniques,
Mm-hmm.
to get better at how we want this end product to look.
Mm.
But you don't have to learn to be creative because it's who you are
Very
at your
fair.
core. And the whole universe is made up of that
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And this energy, I was just trying to think like with art, well, art as a therapeutic vessel.
Mm.
Yeah, like how you as an art therapist like tap or do you guys tap into that creative creation or that energy? I don't know. Like I was like, maybe
Feels
I'm looking for
like
something because my old learning of, art and creativity being, like,
mm,
but just wonder, is there like tapping into that energy of the person that, yeah, particularly adults that you work with, the women, but
I think so.
wherever it's.
I think it's bringing somebody back to their own life force.
Oh, yes. Oh, I was just thinking, I'm saying yes because I think it's the connection to the midlife and the woman,
Yeah.
particularly
Yeah.
coming back to her life force and what we've been talking about today, like about even the rhythm part and how we're, living in systems that aren't aligned or support that, but we have our own rhythms, we have shifts happening, but coming back to that life force that is you,
Yeah.
the creative life force that's there.
Yeah.
And art therapy can be that vessel to support that
Mm.
connection.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know what happens to that life force energy before or after I'm in this body, but right now, because I have a body, I can experience that life force. And I
Mm.
feel like that's why maybe like doing things that you used to do as a kid, your life force was so alive and vibrant then. And so
Yes.
tapping into that again, it's like, oh, there it is. And I feel like, yes, like working and doing all of the responsibility things, oh my God, like our whole society would collapse if we didn't have those available. But if it's at the cost of play and joy and really leaning into what you love, then you can't tap into your life force because you're only in your head force. You have to.
100% your head running around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So maybe creativity is just the life force and the way that we express it, the way that we express it, whether it's a painting, a drawing, maybe they're just the tools that being in a body allows creativity to come into the world.
Oh,
We're getting deep now, but
I
yeah.
love it.
Mm.
But I love deep conversations.
So do I. Bring
That's
it
why
on.
that's why I do this, and that's when I'm going to other things where there's not like, I mean, that's okay, but I it's not as invigorating for me. Like it just
I,
doesn't float my boat.
you know,
Ideal.
Shan, like I have like I've got significant, I've dealt with significant trauma stuff in my own life. And when I feel into it, like as you were just talking then, like my life force was still there, but each trauma was just like another wall that was built around my life force. So I couldn't feel it and I couldn't touch it. So each time I reconnected with something that felt joyous and alive, another one of those walls could fall down until I can really contact that life
Wow.
again. That's how it felt for me in my experience. Other people might be different, but yeah, I feel like that life force is always there.
Yeah. And
And
connect.
sometimes it's just finding the right person or the right facilitator, the right environment, and the right community to help you tap back into that.
Yeah, and how that in itself can, like you said, that was your experience and can be other people's experience or not, but how that actually supports the trauma experiences one has lived through and been through, how
Mm,
tapping into your life force. Oh,
mm,
they're just
yeah.
having all the feels at the moment in my own body.
I mean, in
In a
terms
good
of
way.
neuroscience and everything, trauma does impact the brain. Like it does change us.
Yeah.
It really does. But I feel like that life force is something that can't be touched and changed. I feel like it's just this ever flowing there-ness that we
Mm.
can reconnect with. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm not minimizing the impact of trauma.
No.
But my experience is, and through all the work that I've done with clients, is that life force, that creativity is like this pure essence that's always
Mm.
there.
It kind of almost has some sort of sense of soulness, like I don't know, like the
Yeah.
life force, soul, whether they're separate together, whatever. But yeah, like
Mm.
and I can, from my own lived experience, like I feel way more connected to the life forced, but like still finding my way, still at times get lost in just a head running around.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, more into that. And it's been those and I didn't think of it at the time. I didn't connect with this as that. But I imagine my life force maybe did. But that journaling, which was the very first thing that I did. So I actually turned to creativity, or it
yeah,
was the very first thing that I did to start healing,
yeah,
start that journey. Besides stopping work, but that was more of a push, like it was more of a have to, although I
yeah,
did it. Um, but it was the journaling. It was creative. It was expression.
yeah.
And well, it helped me,
Mm.
And there was a
So
time.
have a think about like if like when we're in our hardest times, if we turn to creativity to help us then,
Mm,
imagine how it would feel if
mm.
creativity was more of a daily or a weekly practice. So it bolsters, it gives us more a wider slice of the pie, basically.
100%. Like
Yeah,
that's where I
it
find.
widens our capacity.
Yes, 100%. Like I've used it as, certainly in my healing, but now like we're included as well. Like there's not, well, I can always do with growing, but it is more about growing now. Like,
Mm.
and I have more slice of the pie most of the time. Um, but like that allows me to have more when I make time. Like I'm doing this, it's from I think you recommended the book to me, but many other people had The Artist's Way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm doing the artist dates. I'm starting to
Ah,
just self dates, but oh my God. Like, again,
yeah,
sometimes it's taken me a bit and still sometimes to actually give myself permission to do it. And I've found some ways to help support me in getting there. But every time I do it, it gives back. It allows for more expansion, allows me to do those things in the world that we have to do, like,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
put
yeah.
food on the table, blah blah blah. Yeah. And so I see what you mean. It's not just a healing medium, but a growth and
Proactive,
expansion.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah, to do this. No, and I could have chosen to stop creativity once I got to, or creativity as a healing, but I continued to journal today, thanks to the artist way as
yeah,
well. It got me back to it. But
yeah.
I'm going to keep that going because it expands me. It's
Mm,
proactive, it supports, it's not, yeah. And I think that's such an important information to learn too, because we often do the healing, which is great and such a huge thing to do, but then stop rather than
yeah,
incorporate those things that actually keep helping us and support
yeah.
us.
I
Um,
think creativity or engaging in creativity is a really accessible way to shift stuckness. So I think we tend to use our heads to try and shift stuckness. So
mm,
we're used to problem solving by thinking in our heads. But you can also problem solve by engaging your body in a creative practice. It just shifts in a different way. And then your body experiences things differently. Your nervous system calms down. And then the part of your brain where you can access the best problem solving can then come online. So I don't know, like I kind of had this realization a little while ago, um, that if I'm trying to solve a problem with my head because I'm feeling anxious, then it's the anxious thoughts that actually often got me there. So, what about if I go, okay, if my head is feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to go to the body instead. So, I use the opposite. And so, yeah, I do some movement, I do some art making. Sometimes it's just like I do a little bit of Lego. I've got some here to show a few. Some
oh yeah,
simple, I call it legulation. So, it's my
I love that.
regulation with Lego.
Mm, mm,
Um, but yeah, like there are ways. I just feel like using the hands and using the body to shift
yeah.
stuckness. Because yeah, I mean everything,
I,
nothing in the world or in nature stays the same. Like it's always going to move at some stage. So if you want to facilitate that stuckness, it's not always just about trying to think your way out of it. Sometimes
no.
you can create your way through it.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and it's so true. I see it constantly with my clients as well, going into the mind, because that's what's been facilitated, encouraged, and even biologically what we're kind of more wired to do as well, but
Mm.
that go into the body. I mean, often I'm doing it or facilitating it through meditation, guided meditation, but it is all about let's go to the body, let's notice where what's happening in the body right now. Let's notice and name that. Yeah, tend to it in some sort of way, whether movements, some sort of, care, compassion. And then what opens up and comes up in the mind, because she works better. Our
Yeah,
thinking mind works a hell of a lot better when there's a calm, calm
totally.
presence.
Yeah.
She's going to be very, very narrow-minded when she's
Mm.
dysregulated. So yeah, always the body. And you can do that through creativity. And that's with the work I've done with you and others, like being able to, that's part of me going into my body now too. Let's doodle that. I keep using,
Yeah, yeah,
let's just draw that out. Let's move that out. I don't do that as much, but definitely the drawing out pen to paper or write it out.
yeah.
I write poems at the moment, but
Mm.
they're not, what's the
They're
word?
not Olympian style poems.
No, they're
They're
not. I'm not doing any training to, skill or perfect it, but with that knowledge that it doesn't matter. It's not about that. You just write. If it's a poem to you, it's a poem, and just
yeah,
write that out and feel that out. But it's all about the body. I love that.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, I'm very mindful. One of the very important things I wanted to find out a bit more. I mean, I know about it, but allow the listeners know about it. The work, the space you've created for women,
Very women pause.
Peri Women Pause, the group that you've created and commenced. And I think it just really sums up a lot of the things that we've been talking about too that is needed. But yeah, please tell the audience about what you're doing in that space, what you've created, the Peri Woman Pause. Yeah, women.
Awesome. Yay. I actually find it hard to say perimenopause now because I'm so used to saying peri-women pause. I wanted to take the men out of our experiencing and make it women. Um
100%.
and also acknowledge that you don't have to identify as a woman to have the lived experience of having ovaries and hormones and all of the things that happen
Yes.
throughout perimenopause. Yeah, so so Peri Women Pause started this year.
Mm.
Once a month, we get together online on a Wednesday night from 6:30 till 8, and I just share and research and do a beautiful guided therapeutic experience around a different theme. So this month is all about permission.
Mm.
So I'll be sharing I'll be sharing an incredible book by an art therapist and artist called Nona Orbach, and she has written a book called The Book of Permission, and it's got doodles in there, it's got photographs, and it's all this really beautiful deep dive into what permission is and what it means. And so yeah, we look at a different book each month, and then yeah, I share. We have some chats in there, we reflect, and then we all participate in a guided therapeutic art experience.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's basically it. So it's really, I always like to make things educational in a really kind of like fun and aligned way.
Mm.
And collaborative and creative. So yeah, it's not like going to school when I say educational, but there are always, elements of learning in there,
Yeah.
growth. Um,
100%.
yeah.
And I've never felt like when in all the groups I've participated in with you, including the Perry Women Pause, it really it doesn't come across as teacher. It comes across as that sharing wisdom, sharing what you know to support the women in that space. It's a sharing. That's how I receive it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Never feel like, because there's no test at the end. There's no,
Oh, God, no.
and I think that's the secret or whatever. Like, there's no test at the end. There's no expectation. There's no, we have to do this. This is, we're all choosing to it. And we're all wanting to be there and including, this is a space you want to be in and creating and the women. Yeah. Like we're all, I don't know. It feels like a sharing. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And that's definitely how I put it forward as well. Like
Yeah.
I'm genuinely like it bolsters me to create this work and to share this work. And I just love the idea of like bringing joy and life force back into people's lives as a priority. Um,
Mm. Mm. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So people can either
yeah.
sign up for a membership every month, or you can just drop in casually, just come for
Yeah.
whichever month you like. It's all on my website. There's a banner up the top, in bright pink, so you can just click on that and learn a little bit more about it. And I'd love for you to join us.
Yes, please do. And I'll have your details, of course, in the show notes. But art is it www.arttuition or
Yeah, yeah.
dot com?
Yeah. So Artuition is the business name that I came up with, and it's like part art, part intuition, and part tuition, like learning. So
Oh, I didn't know those three elements. I knew the art and the intuition because I've never actually asked you. I just took that out. But the tuition and just as you shared about how important education is to you and sharing of that wisdom, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
I know, right?
And the life force that we even talked about I think sometimes intuition or connecting back into that
Yeah.
center, or maybe that helps us tap then into our intuition. But anyway, I just
Mm,
see all those elements that have come out as you shared about art therapy and how that can support and in what ways that does, and bringing in personal and my own personal experiences too, which I don't mind. I'm a self-disclosure. But yeah, just really giving hopefully the audience, and I know it will be like an expansion on
yeah.
how art therapy can support us in any time in life, but particularly in midlife
Yeah.
as well for women and yeah, just for anyone too. I mean, I find I get a speckle of, different audience members. There's not always women in their midlife, and whoever feels that they can tap into this and
Mm.
and benefit from, which can be everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
And there is a materials list there, but with peri women pause, but you can just bring whatever lights you up. So if you're somebody who prefers to journal, if you like working with Lego, if you like drawing or painting, you just
Mm,
bring whatever supplies, and then the prompts that I share in the guided experience, and I put some pictures up for examples about how you might like to take these prompts, and you can explore it in your own way with your own
mm.
materials. So um I,
Yeah, I
I
was
was
gonna
just
say,
going to share my little
yeah, yeah,
so
that's
this is
right.
so this is my altar. So this is my altar
Oh,
of joy and things that are important to me
yeah.
in perimenopause. So I've got some candles there just to remind me of ritual. I've
Mhm.
got a tea there because for me, having a cup of tea and taking time out are just these little micro moments of permission for myself. I've got my cats and nature in the background. I've got
Oh, yeah.
flowers. So an example of how, so if imagine that if we were doing an therapeutic art experience together, this prompt would be joy. What brings you joy? So I've
Mhm.
done this in Lego. If you would like to do it in collage, maybe you would just get a magazine like Frankie magazine or a gardening magazine and just cut out shapes, and that can be like a little reminder
Mm,
of all of the things that bring you joy. So it
mhm.
just it just becomes this kind of like embodied experience, and you end up with this external reminder about what
Mm,
joy or permission or whatever means for you. So that's
mm,
kind of like what Peri Women Pause is about. And the whole ethos behind it is working with people who have a very small sliver. So by the end of the experience, your sliver feels wider. You've got more
mm.
sliver for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can, well, it was my lived experience, but I've been to the very first session and I did come in pretty drained that day, but
Mhm.
definitely left with more of a sliver.
Yeah.
And I love what you just said there for yourself.
Yeah.
And that so that wherever it goes, that
Yeah. Not more to give away, more
no,
for
more
you.
for yourself. And I think you actually, connection of you sharing something around that too. Anyway, yeah, like the more for you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's okay to have a bit of extra space and spend it on yourself. Hey.
Yes. And that's the ongoing permission,
Yeah. Yeah.
ongoing and hearing it from others. That's why, that importance of spaces that that you've created that that you're, facilitating, leading as well, because these messages that we're not hearing elsewhere, but can hear in these spaces can start to submerge into that self and then us being able to give that and act on that. I think it's so important. to have people like yourself in our lives to allow that in, because we're not necessarily hearing it elsewhere.
Yeah, it's permission by reframing the narrative through lived
Yeah.
experience and connecting, and all of us connecting together. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chrissy, for today. As you said, deep, but we both love
Yeah.
that. So, of course, that's
Yeah.
where we went. But sharing everything that you've shared with us today, even though, some examples or, some tangible things there as well, but also that exercise at the beginning as well, just that moment to pause and but yeah, just thank you for coming on again and sharing your wisdom in this area. I was like, I'm just so glad that you're here and that you've shared. Thank you.
Oh, I always love having our chat, Shan. And yeah, thank you for what you've shared about coming to Peri Women Pause as well. It's really lovely. So it doesn't just sound like I'm spruiking what works. You've been able to share from a lived experience as
Ah,
well. And
yeah.
I just, like whether you come to Peri Women Pause or not, maybe even just popping on a little bit of music and doing a
Yeah.
bit of doodling or having a little dance around, just seeing if, today or
Mm.
tonight, maybe there's one small creative thing that you can do to reconnect with your life force. I think that'd be a really lovely invitation for all of us and the listeners.
Thank you for leaving us on that note. Yeah, one little thing that we can do, micro thing we can do for our creative life force. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chrissy.
No worries, Shan. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Midlife Reclaimed. I hope today's conversation has reminded you that you are not alone and that change is possible even in the busiest seasons of life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, rate, or review the podcast and share it with another midlife woman who might need it. For more resources on navigating midlife stress, overwhelm, and burnout, along with reflective writing prompts and community connection, visit shannonaswales.com. You can also watch full episodes on YouTube at Midlife Reclaimed. Remember, you have permission to slow down, to rest, and to reclaim what matters most. See you again soon.